The Mongolian steppe unfolds as an endless white shroud, where screaming winds hurl bone-dry snow directly into your face. At minus 45 degrees Celsius, your breath does not simply vanish. It crystallizes instantly into white shards that cling to your hair and skin. In the heart of this gale, a nomad has less than 1 hour to raise a shelter before their body completely freezes over. Before them, there is not a single hill or forest to offer protection. But amidst this landscape devoid of natural refuge, a circle of wood and wool begins to rise. This is not a tent. It is a survival machine calibrated through 3,000 years of disaster. The Gers. We are about to uncover the secrets of this mobile fortress, an engineering marvel that allows humans to create tropical warmth in the very heart of a frozen desert. The first challenge of the steppe is not the temperature, but the pressure. On an open plateau, with no trees to break the flow, Siberian winds accelerate without limit, creating laminar flows that exert massive force on any structure. A standard rectangular building would become a victim of its own design. Wind hitting a flat wall creates high pressure on one side and a dangerous vacuum on the other, generating lift that can rip a roof clean off. In modern engineering, we call this the Bernoulli effect, the same principle that allows an airplane to fly. But for a stationary home, lift is the enemy. A square house essentially tries to take flight in a Mongolian gale, but the nomad structure is a cylinder. Modern aerodynamic tests show that a circular shape reduces the drag coefficient by 30% compared to square structures. The wind does not hit the gear, it flows around it. The low-profile conical roof directs wind pressure downward rather than creating lift. The stronger the wind, the firmer the structure grips the earth. This is not a coincidence. It is evolutionary design. On the permafrost, the assembly begins. Pliable willow wood is unloaded from the backs of camels. The nomads begin to expand the khana, the lattice wall system. The clacking of wood against wood echoes through the gale. This lattice is a masterpiece of load distribution. When expanded, the wooden slats create dozens of diamond-shaped openings. This is not decorative. It is the geometry of stress distribution. When heavy snow accumulates on the roof, the weight is transmitted vertically through the lattice to the ground without concentrating pressure at any single point. Think of it as a prehistoric pantograph. By distributing the load across hundreds of intersecting joints, the khana can support a snow load many times its own weight. If you tried to build this with rigid planks and nails, the wood would splinter under the uneven pressure. Look at the nomads' bare hands as they check the joints. Not a single iron nail is used. At minus 50 degrees, metal becomes brittle and shatters under stress due to the ductile to brittle transition. Furthermore, iron acts as a thermal bridge, conducting precious heat out and inviting the deathly cold in. Instead, they use udir, strips of raw camel hide that are tied while wet. As the hide dries, it contracts with immense force, creating a bond tighter than any knot while remaining elastic. When the Gers shudders in a blizzard, these leather joints absorb the kinetic energy, allowing the skeleton to dance with the wind rather than snap. This elasticity is the Gers' greatest defense. While a brick wall resists force until it cracks, the Gers skeleton yields just enough to dissipate the wind's energy, converting a destructive gale into a harmless vibration. The most dramatic moment is the raising of the tuno, the heavy central wooden ring. Vertical poles are propped up to support this crown. where all the uni roof rafters converge. The assembly of the uni requires absolute precision. Each willow pole, steam bent to a specific curve, must be inserted into the mortise holes of the tuuno and lashed to the top of the kana. Once the final uni is fixed, the compression dome system is officially activated. Gravity now becomes an invisible glue. To prevent the outward thrust from flattening the walls, the nomads use koshlan, ropes braided from horsetail hair that encircle the upper perimeter of the walls. Horsehair does not stretch when wet and is incredibly resilient under UV light. It is a genius physical feedback loop. The heavier the snow on the roof, the stronger the outward push, which increases the tension in the koshlan ropes, further tightening the lattice walls together. The structure automatically strengthens itself in the very conditions meant to destroy it. The skeleton stands, but it offers no warmth. To face -50 degrees, the nomad needs an insulation material that outperforms any modern synthetic fiber. This is SGIU sheep wool felt. The process of creating felt is an arduous journey, beginning in the spring with the shearing. The wool fibers, still coated in natural lanolin, a crucial binding agent, are spread on the ground and moistened with water or fermented whey. This wool is then tightly wrapped around a large wooden beam called the mother felt. To compress millions of wool fibers into a unified fabric, this roll is hitched behind a galloping horse. For 15 kilometers across the rugged steppe, the frictional heat and constant mechanical impact force the microscopic scales on the wool fibers to interlock. This creates a felt mat 5 centimeters thick, so dense it cannot be pulled apart. The nomads drape multiple layers of this felt over the wooden frame, with the thickest pieces reserved for the northern wall, the side that bears the brunt of the wind. But the true secret of the felt lies in a miraculous thermodynamic phenomenon, the heat absorption. Inside the ger, human breath and steam from boiling tea create humidity. Wool is hygroscopic. It has a powerful ability to absorb moisture. When water molecules penetrate the dry felt, they form hydrogen bonds with the amino acids in the wool. This chemical bonding process releases energy in the form of heat. Research shows that 1 kilogram of dry wool can release approximately 100 watts of thermal energy over several hours. This means that as night falls, the outside temperature plummets and the inside humidity rises. The felt walls automatically trigger a chemical reaction to radiate heat. Unlike modern fiberglass or foam that traps moisture and freezes into an ice shell, felt breathes. It allows moisture to move through the wall and thang hole, sublimate on the outer surface, keeping the insulation dry and effective even during prolonged blizzards. If you were to use a modern nylon tent in these conditions, your breath would freeze into a layer of frost on the ceiling within minutes, eventually raining down on you as ice. The Gers wool walls act as a massive self-regulating thermal battery. The heart that generates this heat sits at the geometric center, the cast iron stove. The nomads use argol, dried cow dung, for quick ignition, and kurgan, compressed sheep dung, for long-lasting warmth. These kurgan blocks have an energy density comparable to brown coal, burning slowly and emitting steady radiant heat all night. Because the ger is a dome with no corners, the hot air from the stove does not get trapped at the ceiling. It rises, hits the dome, then curls and travels down the curve of the walls to the floor before being sucked back into the stove. This is a perfect natural convection system, ensuring there are no cold corners where stagnant air can freeze. At the summit, the tuuno acts as the chimney. The nomad adjusts the urk, the felt roof cover, with a horsehair rope to manage the airflow. This manually operated thermal valve is a masterpiece of survival. Open too wide and you lose heat. Close too tight and you risk carbon monoxide poisoning. Once the fire is roaring, the interior of the Gers becomes a miniature universe with strict laws. The door always faces south, a technical decision to shield the entrance from the prevailing north winds, but it also turns the entire structure into a giant sundial. The nomads do not need mechanical clocks. As the sun moves across the steppe sky, the beam of light shining through the tonneau moves along the internal lattice walls at a predictable speed. They divide the day into 12 hours, according to the zodiac. When the light hits the western wall, it is the hour of the snake, 9 to 11 a.m., the time for milking. When it reaches the center, it is the hour of the horse, midday. The house does not just shelter the body, it synchronizes the labor of the family with the heartbeat of the solar system. Socially, the space is organized by a strict hierarchy to prevent conflict during months of blizzard-induced confinement. The area opposite the door is the koimor, the most sacred space housing the family altar. This is the warmest spot, furthest from drafts, reserved for elders and guests. The west is the male domain with saddles and hunting gear. The east is the female world with kitchen tools and cradles. At the center is the fire god, Galgalant. These rules are not mere superstition. They are the protocols of a survival system. The fire is life. If it dies, the Gers is just a cold felt box waiting for the freeze. This discipline is the only weapon against the Dzud, the various scripts of the steppe's death. There is the white Dzud, where snow buries the world, threatening to crush the roof and suffocate the occupants. There is the iron Dzud, where a brief thaw turns the ground into a sheet of steel ice, starving the livestock. In the nights of the cold Dzud, the nomads perform an incredible biological adaptation. They shift to the red diet, consuming over 4,000 calories a day. Digesting vast amounts of protein and fat from mutton and horse oil triggers diet-induced thermogenesis. Their bodies act as a second furnace, burning energy to keep their blood from freezing. They wear the deal, a long robe cinched with a silk belt to create a sealed air pocket around the torso, protecting the heart and lungs. This pocket of air is heated by the body's core and acts as a reservoir of warmth. Every element, from the sun's path to the calories in their tea, integrates into a multi-layered defense system. When the storm finally breaks, a silence so extreme it feels heavy descends upon the steppe. The nomad pushes the door, but it does not budge. A wall of snow from the white Dzud has sealed the exit. They must heave their shoulders against the wood to break through. Outside, the Gers looks like a giant white mushroom rising from the void. The fortress has held. Not a single slat of willow is broken. But the most refined feature of the Gers is not its sturdiness. It is the philosophy of non-permanence. In a modern world, we build with concrete and steel, hoping for eternity. On a steppe, eternity is a death trap. When resources vanish, a fixed house becomes a tomb. The nomad understands that survival lies in the ability to let go. In 30 to 60 minutes, this entire fortress can be dismantled. The khana walls are folded, the uni rafters bundled, and the heavy felt mats rolled. The entire home now sits on the backs of two camels. This is a feat of logistics. The weight of a Gers is precisely calculated to be transportable by animals, yet heavy enough to resist being blown away by the wind. This mobility allows the nomad to move toward energy rather than forcing nature to serve a static location. This non-permanent strategy is actually the ultimate form of sustainability. By moving their home, they prevent overgrazing and allow the soil to recover. When the nomads leave, the only thing they leave behind is a circle of flattened grass that will disappear in the next spring. If the Gers is the outer fortress, the nomad's body is the inner stove. To survive, they have developed a biofuel system and a lifestyle based on the thermodynamics of the body. The first key is the red diet. While the modern world fears fat, for the nomad, fat is life. Borts, dried beef, or camel meat is a miracle of food preservation. Hung in the feltley all winter, the dry air sucks out the moisture but leaves every nutrient intact. A handful of powdered borts can expand into a high-protein meal, providing enough energy for a man to work outdoors all day at minus 40 degrees. Think of it as the original astronaut food. It is lightweight, calorie-dense, and requires no refrigeration. But the true symbol of warmth is sute tsai, salted milk tea. This is not a drink. It is an electrolyte and energy solution. Brewed with black tea, fresh milk, butter, and salt, it keeps the body hydrated in the arid steppe air, while the butterfat provides a protective layer for cells against heat loss. Every sip is a calculated delivery of energy to the bloodstream. Even their sleep is a heat retention tactic. They do not sleep on high, separate beds. Instead, the family sleeps on felt mats spread directly on the floor, surrounding the central stove. This maximizes the radiant heat transfer from the ground, which has been warmed by the stove all day, while utilizing the shared body heat of the family. In the most extreme nights, they may even bring the youngest lambs or goats inside the ger to share their heat, creating a symbiotic circle of survival. Finally, there is the gutal, the traditional boot. With its upturned toe, it creates a stagnant air pocket in front of the toes. Physics tells us that still air is the best insulator. This gap prevents the direct conduction of cold from the environment into the toes, the area most prone to necrosis. Their lifestyle is one of absolute discipline. From collecting dung to managing their breath so as not to freeze their lungs, every action is calculated to minimize energy loss. They do not fight the cold, they manage it. They become part of the energy flow of the steppe, taking from the grass through the livestock, from the livestock through fire and food, and finally, keeping the flame of human life burning bright in a frozen ocean. While the Gyer protects the body, the most brutal battle on the steppe is fought within the mind. For 6 months of the year, the world outside is a monochromatic void of white and gray. Sunlight is a rare luxury, and for days on end, the only sounds are the whistling of the wind and the crackling of the stove. This is the psychological survival of the nomad. To combat the sensory deprivation of the winter, the interior of the Gyer is a riot of color. The wooden rafters are painted a vibrant orange or red, symbolizing the life of the sun. The felt floor covers are embroidered with intricate blue and gold patterns. This is not just art, it is a neurological necessity. In a world of white, these colors provide the visual stimulation needed to prevent cabin fever and seasonal depression. Hygiene, in a space shared by humans and newborn livestock, is another engineering challenge. Water is too precious to waste on bathing, as every drop must be melted from snow using valuable fuel. Instead, the nomads use the smoke from the stove and the natural properties of the wool. The smoke contains phenols and other compounds that act as mild disinfectants, while the lanolin in the wool naturally repels dirt and bacteria. They have learned to live in a symbiotic relationship with their environment, where even the smell of the Gyer, a mixture of wood smoke, milk, and wool, is a sensory signal of safety and warmth. When spring finally arrives and the first green shoots break through the melting permafrost, the nomad does not celebrate by building a bigger, more permanent home. They celebrate by taking the gear apart. They shake the dust from the felt, oil the willow wood, and move. They remind us that the greatest human strength is not the ability to build walls that never move, but to build a spirit that never breaks.